Hill, and welcome to another episode of The New Norm on Black Enterprise, sponsored by Cadillac. Today, I have the privilege to reconnect with Jason Lee, who is a media personality, author, entrepreneur, and the founder and CEO of Hollywood Unlocked, a leading urban entertainment news company. Thank you so much for coming back to Black Enterprise, Jason.
I'm happy to be here. I feel like we haven't talked in forever.
Even though we have though. But I want to start by congratulating you on the launch of your new talk show, the Jason Lee Show on Revolt. It has everybody talking, especially because you kicked off with the beautiful, the infamous Cardi B. Great way to kick off the show. So like if you can actually start there, let us know. For anyone who actually hasn't watched the new show, tell us about it and how it differentiates itself from the other podcasts and shows that you do.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Well, first of all, I appreciate you and Black Enterprise always showing me love. And, I feel the love now from a lot of people who weren't really there when I needed them the most, but you've always been there and I appreciate that. I look at like the landscape of talk now and, everybody wants to digest different things. But I started to feel like when I looked at the talk show space, when I looked at the entertainment, both in the morning and the evenings, nothing was there speaking to the appetite that I have for talk. And so I ended my podcast, Hollywood Unlocked Uncensored with Damage and Blue, about 7 months ago. I ended all my partnerships and I got into my creative bag. I found me a really good set designer. I got Sean Harrison, an amazing art director, to put together my vision for incorporating that funky flair that Wendy had from a design standpoint with, the Howard Stern and Wendy say it like you mean it and be unapologetic, but also having a heart. And when I started really thinking about what that show would look like, I got with Jill King, who's been a part of Red Table Talk and the Steve Harvey Show and different shows that have won tons of Emmys, to really format a show that would give the people what's missing, but also create a space that celebrities would feel comfortable to come to. And so we wanted to really focus on pop culture, politics, and all things that are driving conversations online. And so far, we're doing pretty good.
You're doing really well. The numbers are coming in. Everyone was talking, like I said, about Cardi's interview. She dropped a number of nuggets and talked about everything from takeoff. Well, what kind of feedback have you been getting from the interview? Because I know you're someone who looks at the comments. So what are the
Mhm.
folks saying? What is the culture saying about your show in that interview?
Well, the thing about it is I've learned specifically in therapy not to let the comments dictate how I feel about myself, how I feel about my work, how I feel about the vision that God has laid out for me. And so I really don't buy into the comments, but I do pay attention to the conversations because ultimately I created a show that is supposed to reflect the conversations that the culture wants to have. One of the criticisms that I got for sure was that I interrupted Cardi way too much. And I kind of laughed at it because that's just a problem I have in general. I'm a Leo. It's just I'm
Not I'm
Italian,
a
you
Leo.
know. Yeah, I'm Italian. I'm a Leo, and so I said before the show aired that this really is a FaceTime conversation with Cardi. This is how we talk on FaceTime. And so what I have to remember, because I haven't done an interview in about 7 months, this is a thing that I have to really get back into my groove, and I do believe I'm getting that fairly quickly. Is when you're interviewing somebody, it's okay to let the conversation breathe. Let it breathe. You have time. Even though with Cardi, at first they said we only had a certain amount of time, she allowed us to go longer than they had set for us. But I wanted to get it all in and be able to do it. But there's also something special about having a friendly conversation where you can connect with them in a way that they can't connect with another journalist, to disarm them and get them very vulnerable. And that's why we were able to get the plastic surgery conversation with Kim Kardashian, giving her a list. We were able to get the moment she found out about Takeoff's passing. We were able to talk about the Saweetie rumors. We were able to talk about very intimate things, and also where she said that she wanted to hurt herself, and that her come up and how she struggled and how she fought through to pursue her dreams. We've never seen Cardi like that before. So although I will say I'm going to work on perfecting my delivery as a talk show host, I think the way we were able to get a lot out of Cardi is reflective in the numbers of how many people saw it.
I mean, I've never seen Cardi so vulnerable. So, I mean, she spoke very openly, and I loved it. I think that anyone who's a Cardi fan just fell in love with her all over again because she just has that authenticity, and she just is so relatable. She literally is that girl from the Bronx, and I love that was
Yeah.
one of my favorite aspects of the interview. And speaking of that, because you guys were chopping it up because you guys are friends, and it's no secret you're friends with Rihanna. We know you have great relationships with Mariah Carey, friends with Tiffany Haddish. And I feel like, Jason, that has been one of the key components to your success in this industry and with Hollywood Unlocked. How have you been able to build and maintain these relationships with some of the most powerful people in Hollywood?
I mean, I look at them as the same as my relationship with you, or my relationship with Robin at Baller Alert, or Charlemagne, or the relationship I'm developing with the vice president. What you see is what you get. I have no time to be anybody other than Jason Lee. I have no energy to create a pseudo image to live up to. I'm just who I am, flaws and all. And I really feel like people gravitate towards what's real. I'm not a perfect human being, and I allow my imperfections to be seen. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there who are pursuing their dreams who also aren't perfect. I don't treat these people any differently than I would treat my friends. I drunk dial them. I text random crazy thoughts. I have vivid opinions. Sometimes I have to criticize them. And I feel like anybody who's my friend just respects that I have a job to do. They know it comes from a good place, even though sometimes the delivery may be a little sharper than what they're used to. But the thing that I'm telling the industry now, and I still haven't done a video on this, but I'm probably going to soon, is anybody who's avoiding me, Hollywood Unlocked, the Jason Lee Show, I already have a relationship with you. You just don't participate. The people who choose to participate in the relationship with my platform have a very different experience. That's why you can have a Kanye West come on the show. That's why you can have all these opportunities. I'm not anything other than what they see. And I feel like once you develop enough courage to have the experience, people walk away going, oh, wow, like it wasn't bad, or it wasn't what everybody said it was. And then I also think that to a certain degree, there's some God's protection in there too, because the right people are in my life and the wrong people stay away. And I'm fine with that.
That's one thing I think, when we've been watching you navigate. I look at your relationships, watch how you navigate that, and then obviously your business is to report on these same exact celebrities. Is that ever a conflict of interest when you're reporting, news that's not so favorable on Mariah or Rihanna or Tiffany? When they break up with people or they're getting backlash, and you have to,
No,
you help
because
report it.
No, because I mean, I guess some people could feel some type of way. Have I had people feel some type of way? Yeah, I mean, we had the public, moment with Joe Biden where he thought we were besties and then he didn't like what I did or my job or whatever. But again, an interview's an interview. Somebody goes on his show and has a conversation about me that's not favorable, whether he tells me or not, it doesn't matter because I'm always prepared and always locked and loaded to respond and deal with it. I don't feel like anybody owes me anything. Those are people who are really close to me. Yeah, we do owe each other a certain level of respect and transparency, but no, I feel like, again, I really just report on what's out there. If there are things that come up that are going to be big, I will call a person and give them like heads up, this is out here or this or that. But again, I have a job to do, and I do it with integrity. So even if the delivery is harsh, and I've also learned though in this whole sipping more cappuccino and less tea is I'm still going to deliver the tea. The tea is going to be very blunt, very highly opinionated points of view on my podcast, the Jason Lee podcast, which is coming soon. But on the Jason Lee show, those are conversations of cappuccino, and I'm learning how to navigate in a very respectful way, but that's just being very focused on intentions. And going back to the Cardi interview, another thing that I realized that people were not happy is that I didn't ask her about the music because I didn't really think about, we talk 3, 4, 5 times a day. I already know. I've been in the studio. I've heard the music. I know what she's working on. I know how she feels about the music. But I have to remember, even though I'm interviewing my friend, I need to be interviewing my friend for the culture, for the fans who are showing up to hear the update on music. I can say, I already know the answer to this, and I know you're tired of talking about it because you talk about it online. can we get an update on the music? Because the fans are going to kill me if I don't ask the question, you know? So it's those kind of things where I'm remembering, like, okay, you have a responsibility to always ask the questions that the fans want to know. And that's what Hollywood Unlocked is about. It's about pulling back the veil of Hollywood and giving people a different point of view on their favorite celebrity.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that. I mean, you definitely have to keep that audience perspective in mind when you have that platform. But you have these platforms for a reason. You're really good at what you do. And one thing that you've always talked about along your journey is the importance of ownership and making sure that you have autonomy. Can you talk about the type of deal that you actually have with Revolt, and if you actually have autonomy over your creative IP?
Yep. I have full creative control over the show. I'm the executive producer and the host. Hired a person named Marina Perrick. Marina was at the Kelly Clarkson show and she was a producer on Steve Harvey's show. I hired her. She moved to California, now works full time as a supervising producer of the show. I have full creative control. So Revolt, we did a licensing deal with the show. They own the episodes. Shout out to Detavio, first of all. Samuel's the CEO of Revolt, who's been a phenomenal supporter of Black storytellers and Black culture. Um, I did a licensing deal where they own the episodes that I shoot, but I also have approval on how they use the episodes, and then we have a profit sharing partnership in all the revenue. So it's really a joint venture and a joint partnership between both companies. My PR team is aligned with their PR team. My social team is aligned with their social team. We have a full rollout plan that is integrated. And so we're all on the same page with how things are rolling, how we collaborate. And somebody asked me the other day, like, why not just upload it on Hollywood Unlocked and then, own all the money from that? And I have to say, I have no problem collaborating where I still have control over my creativity and I still have a partnership in owning the content. Because ultimately I'm leveraging Revolt's resources and network. They're leveraging my resources and my relationships and network. I go on the Breakfast Club. I leverage their audience with my audience. And to me, I don't lose anything by partnering strategically. I'm happy where I am at Revolt, and they've been a great partner so far.
Yeah, no, it's completely strategic, and I think that someone who you've always been someone who looks at the long game. And I remember when we first met Jason, it was back in 2018. And I saw this business savvy media mogul, and I was so happy when I wrote maybe about three stories on you, and I was so happy to really show that and to let the world see how strategic you are and how you've been navigating and taking control of your career. But do you feel like the world sees you like that, or do they still see messy blogger? How are
Yeah.
you controlling that narrative?
Yeah. Well, I've learned to divorce the opinions of people, right? All I can do is, focus on the core people that show up and support me, the quality over quantity. I'll give you an example. You wrote an article on me years ago when I felt like I was enslaved to Viacom and I felt like that they wouldn't let me out of my contract. That story and the subsequent campaign got me out of my contract. And so the network may say, oh, well, that's messy. The way you did that was messy. Well, I thought you keeping me in a contract on a show that no longer was aligned with my moral compass or no longer served a purpose, and it was COVID on top of that, was messy. But, I do what I have to do to move forward in spite of criticism. People want, some people will call me a blogger, even though I don't write stories. I've never written on my site. I don't post on social media. They'll call me a blogger because that's a way of keeping me in a box that allows me to look lowbrow. Although there are bloggers that are extremely successful. I just announced my valuation at 50 million. We just had the articles go up on that. So if I'm messy, but I built a business worth $50 million, I'm doing something right. But then I always challenge people on that, like, who's messy? Is Blueface and Krishan messy because of their toxic relationship? Are we messy because we report on them? Are you messy because you can't get enough of it? Who's messy? And I always ask people to define that, and they never can, because most people who have criticisms aren't people who built businesses like me out of that.
I mean, to your point, if you're someone, myself included, that consumes the mess, we're contributing to that atmosphere. So can you really critique it and criticize it if you're gobbling it up? And even the folks who leave those comments, negative comments on the post that you have or Hollywood Unlocked, they're still fueling the fire because they can't get enough. So hey, that may be a
and
different
and
type of
and
debate.
and when people realize that in this business, it's a click-based business, it's a
Mhm.
comment-based business, it's an analytic-based business. So if you comment, "I hate you, die," that helps us. If you say, "I love you," that helps us, and it's all the same. It's really about where I choose to assign my emotions. And when it comes to social media, I give it no assignment. I don't get caught up in that. I'm too busy. I'm too tired. I have too many priorities. I have too many partnerships. So I don't really focus on assigning my emotions to the comments. What I will say again, though, is that there does require a certain level of responsibility, because when you are also reporting on the White House and whether or not there's issues in DC or local politics or Black Lives Matter or other things, you don't want the audience to get distracted that you're really laying out a holistic vision of the world. Like, you're not just focused on the blue face and the Krishans and the numbers, but you are talking about what's happening online. And right now, there are guests this week on the show. Right now, they are one of the most talked about train wreck toxic relationships that we see. And we can't ignore it because people show up to Hollywood Unlocked because we are the pulse of pop culture. And right now, they are who we're talking about.
But what do you say to folks who say, like, we understand there's toxic elements to our culture, but why amplify that? Why show, whether it's Krishan or whatever Black woman in a state where she's not her wholesome self, she's not healed, she's, clearly has a substance abuse problem, and, clearly isn't representing herself in the best light. And that's being, and young Black girls see that. Why amplify that part of the culture?
Well, couple things. One, every black girl in the world is not Malia Obama. There are black girls in the world like Krishan's. Where I grew up in Stockton, California, I knew lots of girls like Krishan. They just didn't have a camera on them. I think there's two things happening. One, Zeus Network does a great job of buying advertisement, and they advertise the hell out of their content. There's times I've had to text Lemuel like, this is a little left or this is a little much. But he's done a phenomenal job of building a network that has a very niche line of content that speaks to a certain demographic. But I believe, like, we cover all spectrums of our culture. Now, again, it goes back to, where do you want to place the responsibility? I'll tell you right now, if we posted, Selena Hill won an Emmy for this show over at Black Enterprise, people would not care, because people want to consume the stuff that they want to talk about and hate on the most. Love and Hip Hop was a show that was a great way in for me, and I've been very clear that I never wanted to do that type of show, but it was this door that opened, and I showed up and played my part. But it was the number one show on TV when I was there. Millions of people locked in every week to watch it. So again, who's to blame? They can blame me. You're part of the problem. Maybe I am, but so are you.
Well said, Jason. You speak. I want to go back to the business stuff before we talk about the other aspects of culture, because you raised $1.7 million in a seed
Mhm.
round, seed investments. Like you said, your company is valued at $50 million. That's a big deal. You're a young
Mhm.
Black man. In when it comes to even media, it's a tight space, and you've pushed and elbowed your way in here, and the company continues to grow. What was it like, and how did you even raise all that money?
Yeah. Well, we raised a little over 2 million, but we only reported 1.7 in the press because the other 500,000 is scheduled to come in mid-year, and so we're on track for that. How did I raise it? I mean, first I focus on building the proof of concept. I focus on building a very solid plan. I built a very solid exit strategy. I did everything that I said I was going to do. Hollywood Unlocks compound annual growth rate was 77% last year. We went from, we tripled our revenue last year from the year before in the midst of a pandemic and everything else. And this year, I want to double that revenue. And so we can get to $100 million valuation, then raise more money, and then get to a $500 million, and then ultimately $1 billion brand, and then I'm going to exit. But I also am looking at ways of expanding Hollywood Unlocked outside of our own ecosystem. Like, what other platforms are there out there that I can acquire? How can I acquire these other platforms and continue to build experiences that are very different, but also have a very clear ecosystem for advertisers to plug into? And so we're looking at that. What does our subscription based content, original programming look like? I love what Zeus Network has been able to do, but now I'm thinking of building my own network and building my own shows. And then again, where can I leverage the biggest partnerships to leverage audiences and suck them into what we're doing over here? My mind is not always in the tea or always in the this or that. I actually have structured my business to where I can only work a couple of days a week doing my show and spend the rest of my time on strategic moves and partnerships and calls with brands and stuff like that. And so yeah, I think that we've done a really good job of presenting our proof of concept to the world. And then I started building relationships with VCs and the people that have invested. Dion Taylor and Robert Smith, phenomenal Black businessmen who are really, really about the culture. Kevin Johnson, former mayor of Sacramento, who, his wife is Michelle Rhee, huge in ed reform, and he's a really big supporter of Black culture and Black business owners. And then Brown Venture Group, a venture group out of back in, I want to say Midwest, but I don't really know where if they're Midwest or East Coast, but they're all about supporting Black investors, and they came in as well. And so I'm just really excited at the group of people that have worked, and I still own 90% of my business, and I'm still owning and operating, still chairman of the board, still in control of the brand, and I've also integrated myself in a way where if they remove me, you suck the heart out of the business. So you know,
Hold on.
we
So
have to
you no
work well
longer
together,
own
and we do.
97% of your business. You own 90 now.
90%, yeah. With this
So you
last raise,
sold
it
some
went
equity,
to
some
90.
shares.
Yeah, that's how we went from when we last talked down 97%. But then you raise over $2 million, and you have to sell some of that equity.
And you already have an exit strategy. How important is that as a business owner to to think about your exit?
Well, my new courses, which I talked to you about when I first launched, Media Millionaires Unlocked. The reason why I created that is because I think oftentimes creators get into the business and they solely focus on the follower rate and the engagement rate. They don't focus on why they're doing it. And so if you're spending all your time focusing on creating the content that goes viral, that is a part of it. The content that you're creating is important, and making sure that you're delivering for your audience. But the reason why I developed the courses is because in my course, I talk about the exit. I started Hollywood Unlocked with an exit plan. So as soon as I started, I found a person, Deshaun Owens, who's now my CFO, and we sat down and we built out a deck that laid out what the business was about. And in my courses, I actually give you the deck, and we show how to develop that exit. And ultimately, I said, I want to sell Hollywood Unlocked for $1 billion. This was back in 2015. And so now what we're doing is looking at all the different things that bring in money. I was saying today that I'm exploring a partnership with OnlyFans. OnlyFans has a certain stigma that people think about, but now they're investing in original programming. But what if we created something at OnlyFans that made 500,000 a month? If I make 6 million a year from OnlyFans and show a story and able to tell a story where every month we're making 500,000, after 2-3 months of solid income, I could then say future projections are 6 million annual. So that's times 10. If you do a 10x on that, that's a $60 million value add to my business. So now I go from a $50 million company to a $110 million company. And then you raise $11 million and you give away 10%. And now you take that $11 million and then you look at what brands can I buy 50% of or 51% of. So now I own this brand that's making, that's worth 50 million. And now, so it's a numbers game. And when you really figure that out, I mean, you're just destined to win.
Is all this information in the Millionaire Media Unlock course that you have?
It sure is. MediaMillionaires.com. And I gave it all away for a low price because, when I was in this business, nobody wanted to help me. Like getting people to support me. That's why I always stay connected to you as much as I can, because when I was on my come up and really wanted to tell the stories outside of throwing drinks and all the chaos and the shows, people were really focused on the content I was doing and not focused on the business mind and how smart I am. And I always go back to like, you supported me during that time because people have to understand that, like, as black people, we're not the sum of one mistake or one experience or one snapshot of a moment. We, you know, we're a multi-layered, multi-hyphenated, person or brand. For me, I always pushed out this character of spilling the tea and reading you for filth because that's the content that was sticking and people wanted to see. And I still have that guy, but I'm just now peeling back the layers a little bit more. And with the Jason Lee show and the Jason Lee brand, showing people all sides of me, where there are going to be days where somebody needs to be read for filth, like Stephen A. Smith talking about Rihanna. It needs to be he needs his edges to be pushed back further than they have been. And there are going to be times where that happens. But at the same time, there are going to be days where I have to talk about, the politics that govern this world and this country and what's happening in DC from a front row perspective. And that's going to happen also.
Speaking of the tea, and you just dropped some with steaming, Kanye, you and Kanye, you were what, head of his partnerships and media for seven
And the
months in 2022.
head, head of media. Yeah. Head of media.
Head of uh, you quit after 7 months. What did you learn from that, and what were you really trying to accomplish? I mean, it was definitely a good. When I first saw that, I was like, and I saw the difference in Kanye's delivery. I saw his got a little strategic, especially when they locked him out of his daughter's birthday party, and I was like, Jason probably behind this. But like, what were you really trying to accomplish, and why'd you quit so soon?
What's crazy is, one, I just did a whole press run and nobody brought that moment up. I was very much involved with the birthday thing, like text by text play of how to play that out, and it worked. The brunch with the Black Future Initiative with all the black storytellers, the black journalists, it worked. The interview we did and how we laid that out and humanized him, how we let the culture forgive him, how we humanized and made him look like a father, it worked. But ultimately, after we started working together, he decided he wanted to do things his way. And he has the right to do them his way. I replaced his PR team. I brought in a very adequate PR team. I helped him create a whole team of people around how to help control his narrative. But really, what I was there for was he had $1 billion commitment from Saudi Arabia to be able to build architect, media, products, housing, food. I mean, he had this commitment. So my idea was, let's take, say, 100, 200 million, buy all these media outlets. I could sit on the top of head of media, take some equity from that, be able to help really control and drive the narrative of the culture, be able to, plug you into the vein of what conversations are happening around the culture in the world. But I think ultimately that just required a certain level of humility and focus, because to do that, I mean, we were on the phone with all types of people negotiating the sale of different platforms, but he just was never able to follow through on that. And then also, I mean, what privilege is it for somebody like me who's been pro community, pro culture, pro black storyteller, to sit at the room with the presidents of Adidas or the presidents of Gap and be able to advocate for spending money in program-based initiatives to help our culture, or in with black media. When I met with Adidas and I asked them how much money they were making, they made $3 billion with Kanye and spent $0 on marketing, $0 in donating to our communities. So Kanye put me in a seat where I could have these conversations with them to hold them accountable, because ultimately any company that profits off of business from people who look like you and I should be pouring a percent, at least 5 to 10% of that money back into our communities. And I really felt like the gap between Adidas and Gap was their understanding of their obligation to do that. And I think they also benefited from his distraction, because he's such a genius on music and fashion and culture, and this, his mind is all over the place. Plus he was going through the divorce with Kim, custody fight with the kids. Pete Davidson was gaslighting him. He had a lot of things going on to where he wasn't able to really push the button on holding these brands accountable. And then now you see where he's changed the public conversation with some of the ridiculousness that he said. They've abandoned him and now are going after all his money. So it's almost like they built up this person and it was all good, and all the crazy shit he was saying and doing when he was making the money and wasn't, feeding back into the community. But now that the world is saying, hey, y'all gonna do something about this, they're like, okay, let's just take it all. So yeah.
And I agree, because it was a strategic play, but like some of the stuff Kanye has said. and continues to say it's just it's completely out of bounds. And I wanted to get your opinion on that. Obviously he did the White Lives Matter shirt and gaslit us all with Candace Owens. He said George Floyd died from a drug overdose. A number of anti-Semitic remarks. Where do you stand on that? And like, did you see any of that while you were working so closely with him?
You know, so to the latter point, he would say stuff like "I'm Putin," I'm Hitler. He said that early on, and that's when I knew that there were going to be some issues. He also said he was going to run for president, which I was very clear in my own mind that to me was going to be the ultimate decision for me to leave, because I really do care about politics. I care about this country, and I don't know that Kanye West is stable enough to be the president of the United States. But what I will say is that he would say stuff because, and it's hard to explain how Kanye thinks. So I'll try my best. He is a genius. Undoubtedly, he's a genius. And there's a lot going on in his mind. And there's a lot of things that I think he's still healing from or trying to heal from. I've seen the Kanye that I put on the phone with Karen Clark Sheard, who prayed for him and he prayed with her. I've seen the Kanye West be denied access to his kids and be really emotional about that. I've seen the Kanye West who said that he doesn't want to be on earth anymore. I've seen Kanye West who talked about the love he has for his mother and the desire to not make the same mistakes as his father. So I've seen the vulnerable side of Ye that as a person you do fall in love with and you care about as a human being. But then I also understand that when he communicates, he says things in a way that he may not say he wants to kill 6 million Jews, but by saying you're Hitler, that's what those people hear. And there's an impact to your words. And when you try to explain that to him, he feels like you're trying to control him. And so in many ways, he gets in his own way. And so I would say that, do I think he's a racist? No. Do I think he said racist things? Yes. The Candace Owens thing, I do believe that once Ye trusts you and believes in you, or you've supported him in a time where nobody's supporting him, there's a certain loyalty there where he goes all out in supporting you. What he did with Candace Owens was complete nonsensical bullshit. And she used him because she is a soul sucking scumbag. But she used him, her husband used him to promote his app. And they used him, and he won't never admit to being used because that's the narcissistic ego that he has, but he got used. You would say that George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose is the most ridiculous thing in the world. Even if he had fentanyl in his system, to say that that's why he died when the people in have already ruled that he was killed. But that again is less Kanye, although it's coming out his mouth. That's more Candace. That's Candace and her documentary, which he helped to promote. Again, it's just nonsense, but I've learned to just turn that off. And I do care about him as a person, and I want him to be well, and I want him to be happy, and I want him to thrive, and I want him to make a comeback. But I also am glad that the world held him accountable. I just am mad that the world held him accountable after he said the Jewish stuff and not after he said the George Floyd stuff.
No, I went off over George Floyd, and I was someone who, because Kanye, he has this cycle,
No, but
right? Where
he
he
didn't
says,
lose. He didn't lose. He didn't lose his Gap and Adidas deal when he said the White
"Oh yeah,
Lives Matter and the George Floyd. But that goes back to his point that white lives matter because when I say the anti-Semitic stuff is when you want to take everything from me, but when I say all this anti-black stuff, y'all ain't saying nothing. So if you really pay attention, in many ways, he's proving his words right, but attacking any group of people, like the Jewish community has been through a lot of pain. We went through slavery. Mexicans are still going through stuff at the border with the kids in cages and separated from their families. Every cult, Muslims labeled a terrorist group by the Donald Trump administration. Every group of people, women not having full control over their bodies, black people still wondering whether or not our voting rights are going to be taken away. Like, we all have our issues, but to politicize one group's pain over another was just wrong, and that's where I think he fell short.
um." To that point, and I'm happy that you said that you're happy that the culture people have held him accountable. Should Kanye be canceled in the sense where let's let him take a seat. Let's not amplify him. He clearly needs help. He's only making things worse for himself, and because he's extremely problematic, and he says hateful things. Is it time for us to let I want to use the word cancel because I know you have very strong opinions on cancel culture, but some of us have canceled yet. because it's time and time again. We try to forgive him, he tries to redeem himself, then he just goes back all over in this downward spiral, and he takes everybody with him, through these racist and hateful remarks.
I don't believe that Kanye should be canceled because I don't believe in cancel culture. And I really believe that cancel culture lives in the minds of black people, and the control of it lands in the hands of white mainstream, right? Like mainstream could say, we're going to take this away or we're going to destroy you in the media, and we're going to take everything from you. But ultimately, can you cancel a person who has millions and millions of fans all over the world, who could do a concert once a month for the rest of his life and make millions of dollars and dig himself out of this hole? He can create a shoe at any moment and drop it. It will sell out in seconds. I mean, what does cancel culture really mean, right? It's, are we going to continue to shit on his name and talk bad about him? I don't know. Do I think he was held accountable and should be held accountable? Yes. How long does that accountability culture last? That's up for the people to debate. But to cancel somebody, I just don't believe in cancel culture. I don't believe it's real. Everybody wants to cancel Balenciaga. I kept wearing Balenciaga. People are still wearing Balenciaga. Balenciaga is going to take a hit and they're going to be fine, But like, are you going to attack the Catholic Church and all the pedophile pastors and preachers who are sitting there touching on the altar boys? I don't know. Like, where do you start attacking the problem, and who are the problem? Are the Catholics problematic because they keep going to the Catholic Church when they know this is happening? Are the kids? Are the parents at risk? Should they be canceled because they keep letting their kids sign up for being altar boys? Is the Vatican accountable for not casting them all in prison or to death? I mean, where does cancel culture start in when it comes to black people? The minute you do something wrong, take everything from you. Well, guess what? For somebody like a Kanye West who fought hard to get everything he got on his own, and who put on Virgils and the Jerry Lorenzos and the different people that he's put on and introduced the world to for culture, I just think he's too important to the culture to just be canceled. However, do I think that people should continue to profit by putting him on all these platforms and exposing his mental health and exposing his ridiculousness? I mean, there were a lot of people like, should Piers Morgan be canceled for putting him on? Like, where does cancel culture responsibility lie? It goes back to what we said earlier about the Krishan example. Are we to blame the consumers, the platforms? I don't know. I think it's up for the people to decide how long he's accountable. He's taken his lashes, but we have to be careful with cancel culture, because with Kanye, what we saw was people got real comfortable with him being canceled that they tried to cancel Kyrie Irving too. And you look at how Kyrie Irving was going down. They tried to take everything for him. They publicly whipped him in front of everybody. They basically cut his balls off, then went and didn't do anything to Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, that housed the documentary that was being shared. There was no conversation. Jeff Bezos not only owns that, but he also owns the Washington Post. But again, that to me really is the validation for Ye on what he was saying. He just was saying it wrong, but that was the validation of what he was saying.
Yes, yes. And I know, Jason, we do have to let you go, but one of the last things I wanted to just talk to you about is you've actually been everywhere. Not only you have the Jason Lee show, just to bring that back full circle, but you've been on the Breakfast Club. And honestly, that's one of the things I wanted to definitely touch on. I saw it, I loved it. I've been a fan of the Breakfast Club for so long. We know our beloved Angela Yee has left, and you just took over. I think they were calling it the Tea with Jason Lee instead of the Raw
Yeah.
Report. It was so
Yeah.
good. So I think a lot of people in the comments were saying, like, you seem like a natural fit. Would you actually consider replacing Angela Yee and joining the Breakfast Club?
Well, Angela Yee's gone. She's a part of that brand, that staple of a brand that's now legendary. Would I join the Breakfast Club? Absolutely, I would join the Breakfast Club. I mean, that's my favorite show. If you watch all my interviews over the years, I've always said, like, the Breakfast Club, once you make it there, you feel like you've made it, because they're so important to the culture. I have major respect for DJ Envy and Charlemagne. Charlemagne was the person who helped me get my nationally syndicated radio deal with iHeart. And he constantly reminds iHeart, like, why y'all let him get away? He's golden. We need to figure it out. So I did see all the fan comments, and I mean, they were all over social media. And ironically, I never hear from The Weeknd unless I'm doing something good and he sees it, and he'll text me and be like, congratulations. The Weeknd texts me, congratulated me on the Breakfast Club, and then he went and liked the video on their page where it said, "I'm a tough act to follow. Nobody can follow behind me," or some was saying being messy, whatever. But yeah, I would do it. I would do it. But I do think that they need a female as well, because there's a such a platform for women and to hear this conversation. And it'd be great to have a gay person on the show too, to just talk about our community, because we need to be represented in the culture too. I would love to see a Little Nas X interview on the Breakfast Club with me, Envy, and Charlamagne.
Oh my God, that's an instant classic. That's a moment in
Classic.
culture. First of all, Little Nas X hasn't
Yeah.
been on the Breakfast Club. That I'm actually surprised to
I
hear
don't know if
this.
he's. I don't know. I don't know. He may have been on, but I'd like to see him on there with me there. Us against
Yeah, I
them.
don't think he has. I don't think he has.
And
Jason
and
Lee.
and and the rumor report, that's Angela's thing. Like, they need to retire that with Angela. The T, Jason Lee with the T, or the T with Jason Lee, is a segment on the Jason Lee show. I would love to do that in my own way.
I love it. Jason Lee, you're everywhere. You're killing it. You're dominating. Media mogul. Is there anything else that you would like to add or that we should look out for that you're doing?
Yes. So the three pillars of the Jason Lee Hollywood Unlocked brand are entertainment, education, and empowerment. So the entertainment is the Jason Lee Show and all things Hollywood Unlocked, and other shows that I'm creating. The education is the MediaMillionaires.com, Media Millionaires Unlocked, of my courses, and the Media Millionaire University that's coming, and the summit that I'm building. And then the empowerment is the Hollywood Cares Foundation, which I'm really passionate about. I'm going back to my purpose now and launching a foundation. I haven't fully launched it yet, but we're working on an initiative to really help Black and Brown kids like me find hope and behavioral change in inner city communities, by using the entertainment business as a driver for that. And so, using all my relationships, resources, and all that to do that. And I'm looking at piloting that back in my hometown. So, top of February, we should have a really big announcement coming out of an initiative that the city will fund. And I'm going to be asking everybody for money and help out.
I love it. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys check out the Jason Lee Show on Revolt, streaming on the channel as well as on the YouTube and actually revolt.com. We're looking forward to it. Thank you, Jason, again for your time.
Anytime.